So, welcome, folks, to another podcast series session on building high performance teams. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Eva Schoenleitner. Eva is the CEO for Crate.io. Eva, welcome to the session. Great to see you today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated being able to join your session today.
Brilliant, brilliant. Eva, I'm gonna jump straight in, and the first thing I'd like to ask if you can tell us a little bit about yourself professionally, and maybe a little bit about yourself personally too.
Absolutely. So you already mentioned Eva Schoenleitner. I'm based in Austria, born in Austria, got my education there, but then very quickly moved to the United States. Got my MBA many years ago and thought, oh, I start working there for 3 years. But no, 3 years turned into 20 plus years.
Wow.
Um, about 3 years ago, I came back to Europe actually and joined ABB, an industrial company, to head up partnerships for their digitalization efforts. And ever since, I've been living in Switzerland, in Zurich, and I have to say, I truly enjoy it. In the US, I've worked all my life in mostly software and technologies all over the US, but heavily focused on the West Coast, Seattle, and also the Valley. So personally, I am married. I have several cats. I won't tell you how many, otherwise you think I'm a crazy cat lady. But and my husband and I love to travel. And now, of course, being in Switzerland, the outdoors are beckoning every weekend. So we're out and about every weekend there.
Lovely, lovely, excellent. Switzerland, I'm sure. Do you ski, Eva, by any chance, or is it kind of hill walking?
Absolutely, absolutely. We already have first snow right now, and yes, well, hopefully we can have a ski season this winter. So we'll talk about this, I'm sure, in a little bit.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Eva, you've had a fantastic career and so many opportunities to lead large teams, Panamea teams and global teams in your career to date. Can you tell me a little bit about what it means to you to be a leader?
Absolutely. I mean, a leader is somebody that people follow. It doesn't need to be the manager. Very often we see leaders at all levels. Somebody who steps up, who influences others, who people want to follow and want to be listening to, and then communicating with and aligning in ideas or work efforts. So this is what I feel is a leader. Of course, ideally, people managers should all be leaders, but it's not
Yeah,
always quite the case. And on the other hand, you don't have to be a people manager to be a leader.
yeah.
So very young in your career, also very senior, being an expert in the field will also definitely enable you to be a leader.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting concept that leadership doesn't necessarily have to be the person that's actually, in the company hierarchy, they might be the boss, but that, leaders can come from anywhere. Do
And you
you,
will spot these leaders when there's questions, and they always people turn to certain individuals. Those are the leaders, irrespective whether they're the people manager or not.
that is interesting too. The person that people will follow, that they respect their decision for or choice for whatever reason. Do you think is leadership for you? Is it more about kind of intuition, or is it planning? Is it something that you got to sit down and plan out, or is it something that you got to, it's more thinking on your feet?
Well, I think it's a combination because, I mean, e- leaders you're never born with. I mean, with the attributes. The question is, do you want to excite other people and have people, collaborate with you and wouldn't say follow. I mean, that's to the extreme, but so to be able to communicate with others is critical to this effect. You
Yeah,
can't just think in your mind, oh, I want to be a leader. Yes, yes, let me send an email to my boss. I want to be a leader now. Yeah, that's not how it works.
yeah,
Leadership shows through actions and demonstrating and collaborating with others as you rise to the challenge, as you lead, kind of thought leaders, as you work on a project, you bring in ideas, you support others, you listen to others. That is how you get into it. So It's a question: do you want to have this kind of role? Do you want to contribute in this way? And then naturally, you basically move in that direction. There is a lot of leadership training out there, and clearly, as you become aware of what you're doing, some training around this area clearly is, and coaching is greatly helpful. As I said, leaders aren't born. It's just a learned skill as well, but you need to want it. So it's a combination.
Excellent, excellent. And actually, I was going to ask you, do you think it's more nature or nurture? But I think you answered that question in saying like if I understood you correctly, it's about learning and your experience and kind of the desire to learn to be a leader.
Exactly that. And of course, it then greatly helps. And I've had this in my career as well. When you have a coach, and the coach doesn't need to be official coach, but it could be your manager, it could be somebody else that you trust that gives you feedback how to develop further. It's like, hey, this worked really well. You should continue this. If you had said it, blah, 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 this way, that would have maybe come over a bit better. And this is ongoing. I have this today too, to listen to feedback and to continuously improve as we go along, because situations change, people change. Like right now, for the last 2 months, I'm heading up a startup, and
Yeah.
I've not been in a startup before, so the type of people and the employees and the thinking is very different. So I do a lot of listening. Just because I was a leader before doesn't mean like I'm the CEO, I'm the boss. But as I said, a boss is not necessarily the leader. You truly want to be the leader. I do as well.
I understand. I get that. Actually, I was on your site. I was saying earlier I was on the crate.io site, and it just I have to say it just looked like fun. I really liked the pictures of the team, the craties. It just struck me as interesting. Looks like a fun team. Um, can I ask in terms of teams themselves, Eva? What do you see as kind of the key characteristics for building that high performance? I mean, something that must be kind of front of mind for you with a startup as well, trying to get the ball rolling, to get the energy going.
Yeah, I definitely see a few components to this. One critical view I always have: are the teams diverse? Do they have diverse backgrounds? Do they have diverse skill sets? Always having the same skill sets and the same type of people in one team will get you, maybe you agree quicker in the beginning, but in the end, the outcome is not as good as is if you have different team players coming from different backgrounds and having different skill sets. So I always look at who has what skill set, how where are they coming from, and how is their thinking, how is their communications ways as well. And think, how can we then together um, build the best team? And are we missing components?
Mm,
As an example, I am a typically very outgoing person. I can be very analytical, but honestly, I don't want to be a finance manager. I maybe could, maybe, but it's not my nature. I don't want to do it. So immediately in every team, I look for somebody to augment my preference of skill set, and have somebody to back me up with the operations, the finance, and these areas, because I know it's their passion. It I can do it, but it's not my passion. So
yes.
just as an example, and then we build from there.
Yes, that's really interesting, and I love hearing about the passion piece coming out there too. So trying to have a diverse set of backgrounds to so that you've got all the skills necessary for that performance, but the passion as well. And I guess even more so with a startup, you really have to have that drive in such a competitive landscape, in such a competitive world. Is Can you tell me a bit about some of the biggest challenges that you've seen when trying to instill that performance, when building that team?
Uh, yes, I mean, the challenges come in different ways. One challenge, of course, as I'm moving into a startup now, I realize in a startup, people are extremely diverse, and the ones in my company are very diverse, the team members. But I also found you're expected to grow and grow up very quickly in a kind of a hockey stick VC type startup environment, to professionalize very quickly, which is a quite different skill set than the innovation and the just ground up drive one has in a typical startup. So what I found, for instance, them adding as a skill set, it's like, oh, we need to have, let's say, pick any function. Um, when you now we need to have somebody, a leader, meaning a manager, or some expert on this team to have a functional expertise what it means to be like 2 steps ahead now in terms of size,
Right.
versus before it was groundbreaking innovation, really from the ground, starting up from having zero. Now we're moving to the next level. Is realized, oh, skill wise, we're maybe missing something, and adding certain individuals, subject matter experts or managers, to have this skill set. So to continually adapt, based on the trajectory where your group is moving, your team is moving, your strategy is moving, and saying, am I still aligned with that, and is my team based on the backgrounds, the skill sets, in the right balance, or am I now missing something, and then
Mm.
to augment that. So that's one component.
Wow, that's
Another component, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, Eva. Go ahead, sorry.
In the second one, I mean, I'm saying the obvious, but I mean, in these days, we're having a huge change in how we work with each other, especially also brought on by COVID. I
Mm.
mean, before, many companies, including many I've been in, the coffee chat and the connectivity one has through in-person meetings, the travel, the events, all this was the meetings with customers in person. All this was foundational to the success of a company. Today, we don't have any of this, and
Mm.
probably many more months still. And there is a huge transformation of how we work with each other, and that also means a huge transformation in how teams effectively communicate and operate with each other. So
Mm.
I don't think it's just a short-term thing. However, I think this is here to stay. Once we can visit again, sure, the visits will continue again and start up again. But I think this remoteness, and the digitalization, and using collaborative tools much more aggressively, and deeply, will definitely stay.
They're fascinating insights. I think your point around the first point you made around as the team is growing and seeing a requirement for new skill sets as the team kind of as you know your startup and you're coming into different levels, the different kind of skill sets you need to take you all the way up that trajectory. That's absolutely fascinating, and I can see how that could be, a huge challenge. Maybe certain people in certain roles at startup are not the same people you need when you're at a higher level.
And the same would be as another example, geographic expansion. In
Mm.
one of my prior companies, we decided, oh, let's move, it was a US based company, let's move into the Asian market, specifically China. And, if you don't have the experience there, you just will not succeed. And
Yes.
so it takes a totally different skill set, to adapt what the knowledge is. Yes, you may have a solution, a product, an offering, but to enter a different market, you really truly do need to understand. So that's a classic case where you need to immediately add different skill sets to the team and need to also be open to those.
Yes.
So just as a second example.
Yes, that's a great example. That's a great example, and I've met a number of kind of global leaders already, and kind of similar commentary around the skill sets that are needed by just by geography, to be more familiar with the culture of the country that you're working in, etc. So that's a really interesting point. And actually, you the next question I was going to ask is about remote working and kind of how you build high performance teams in the remote work era, and like has leadership has have the functions of leadership changed, and it sounds like it's very much front of your mind at the moment, this kind of remote work era. Have you seen a shift in how you're working because of this kind of, I mean, I guess there's always been remote working, but we've been thrust into it now worldwide. Anyone who can remote work is doing it, it would seem. Has that changed your kind of perspective and your way of managing and leading?
It surely has. I mean, like you say, remote work has been there before, but it was kind of augmented for
Yeah.
maybe the employees that were somewhere else, or the trying to maybe stem travel costs, things like that. But it was more an optional affair. Now these days it's not optional, and we
Yeah.
all are doing it every day, and we've been at it for many months. It created special challenges. What I noticed is team members within the company, or even connections to customers, partners, and so on, where you had the personal connection before,
Yeah.
it's not that hard to continue that because you already know each other. It's you I mean, there's different steps. A phone call is less information than a video call, and that's less information than seeing each other in person. That the clues you get and the behavior and the feedback you get from somebody else. If you
Yes.
already know each other, it's a lot easier to continue this the collaboration and to have a common understanding and continue the collaboration of work. Where it got really tricky in terms of employees, I saw it right away. We had employees starting new in a company. You basically remote by yourself. It already starts of how you're going to get onboarded with the
Yeah.
new tools and the new laptops. How is this really going to work? And can you just ship the items and then remotely log in? And how do you explain the onboarding? And especially then, how do you network? How do you get your traction? So it makes it extra difficult as you're onboarding in a new company or salespeople. Big challenge. You're supposed to basically discuss and get in front of new prospects and build new relationships. I mean, the principle of sales is all relationships, and
Yeah.
now you're limited to phone calls and video calls. It makes it extremely difficult to do this. So you need to be very creative to upkeep the relations, how to build new relations, and also how to keep motivating the team members, external and internal, going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. That onboarding piece is particularly interesting. People coming new into the company, and they don't have that kind of, they're not in the office kind of living and breathing and feeling the culture of the business itself. And similarly for salespeople, where that kind of relationship building is fundamental to the team. Can you tell me a little bit about how you're applying kind of digital technology to help, I guess, overcome some of the challenges that we have with remote working?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, we're a tech company. Of course, we're completely connected. We do video calls and so on. We have all the tools. We're quite well equipped. So, I mean, need I say more on that? But
Yeah.
yeah, work gets really challenging, and as we move into year end, we're thinking, well, how do we do normal offsites? In the past, that's where you really then the strategy meetings, the year end meetings, the mid year meetings, where you then regroup and really get the energy from. So we need to be very creative. Right now, it's year-end meetings. How to have ideas on that, and there is companies now and business models spurting up left and right as we're looking into this. As an example, our team is going to do a remote offsite where we're basically sending food items pre-prepared. In this case, we're Switzerland and Austria, Käsespätzle. So, and everybody gets a package. And then
Yeah.
we're going to do a big, basically online call, video call. And we're going to do a remote, basically communal cooking
Yeah.
as part of our online team meeting and gathering for the next year planning. And then we're gonna do prizes of who does the best. Of course, we can't smell it; everybody tastes it. We do selfies with food.
Yeah.
There is augmentations and there is creativity already going around. Well, can we make more out of this? And can I add special ingredients? And we have some team members from Mexico and they want to add jalapenos and things like that.
Yeah.
So you need to be very creative. In the past, we did an outing at some mountain hut for 2 days, and we closed the doors, and out we came energized. We
Yeah.
can't do this year. So these are kinds of the examples of how to motivate the team members and how you turn some, you know, need for alignment and really realize the use of digital tools that we have today
Yeah.
and digital means to achieve basically the same connectivity that we're all looking for.
I think it's such a fab idea because it just keeps people engaged while they're on the call. And I wouldn't consider myself much of a chef, but I do love cooking. It's good fun, and maybe you can have a beer while you're cooking as well. So I like that. I have to ask you, what's Kish Spechler?
Well, that's like I wouldn't say it's noodles, but it's little. It's this a Swiss Austrian specialty. So they look like gnocchi, small gnocchi. We
Ah,
have
yeah,
with cheese and I think with bacon. I don't know.
yeah,
We will see. I don't
yeah.
know. I can
Che-
report more in about 4 weeks.
Cheese and bacon sounds good. I'm actually getting hungry here talking about this. Can I Eva, I guess one of the last things, a couple of the last things I'd like to ask you. Do you have what's your kind of number one tool for kind of remote working at the moment? Your number one digital tool?
Well, obviously the video conferencing. So we use
Yeah,
all kinds of tools because our customers, I mean, we standardized honestly on Microsoft Teams, but
yeah,
we also have Zoom, we have Google Meet. I mean, every customer and partner has their own standards. So we will just use what your our customers and partners require. But
yeah,
internally we're standardized, and that works just fine. So, and our technology team has enabled this just fine. Well, and then on top of the obvious of video, of course, we use the intranet extensively of shared work groups, shared notes. I mean, digital. I mean, think like a Facebook type chatting, but private
yeah,
within the company. I mean, there's on top of just the video calls, there's a lot of other communication going on, and we're not talking email. So very
yeah.
dynamic. You know, whiteboarding on digital whiteboards and things like that. So we can really collaborate.
Very good. And there's been a kind of an upsurge in kind of employee engagement tools out there. Some excellent ones out there at the moment. Um, If the last question I'd like to ask you is that I guess I'm always fascinated by leadership, and particularly in kind of more senior leadership positions like CEO, how you have you any kind of tips or tricks in terms of kind of how you maintain your kind of motivation and your sense of well-being, and how you can kind of bring the best of yourself to work. Do you have any tips or tricks you can tell us that you might
Well,
employ to do this?
for me, what's super rewarding is when I see others succeed. So I do a lot of coaching, whether it's formal or informal, but I mean, with my team members, with prior team members, with others. And what makes me really happy and totally proud is if others are successful and I see that they're moving on and I see that they're successful in their ways. I mean, that totally gives me energy because it shows me also that what I'm kind of brainstorming with team members and my mentees actually makes a difference for them personally, and so that
Yeah,
makes a difference for me as well. And on the other hand, I appreciate this greatly when I get the coaching as well and the feedback, the ongoing one, because then you don't operate in a vacuum and you feel like there is helping hands out there. You're not alone.
yeah,
Whether you are in the remote sense right now, but it's always the case. If you feel
yeah,
like you have a supportive network that helps you, that catches you, if something goes wrong, and we all run into challenges
yeah,
almost daily, then that's a wonderful thing, whether this is family or whether it's friends or whether it's in the professional workspace. So this is
yeah.
very important to me, that you feel you're safe, but you can be bold and to help others and see that they're successful in their own way. Uh, Both of these components give me personally great motivation.
Excellent, excellent. And that's fantastic to hear. And I think you mentioned a piece around kind of mentorship and sharing ideas earlier in our conversation as well. And that's coming out really strongly, and that makes so much sense. Um, Eva, this has been a really fantastic conversation. It's been lovely to speak with you and see you again. And we got some really wonderful insights there into kind of your views and leadership and building high performance teams. Thank you so much for your time again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And everybody, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.